All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chase Carrington YouTube channel, and that is me. And currently, we've been reading through The Wisdom of the Ages, or just Wisdom of the Ages, by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And today we're on the chapter called Prayer. It's about page 43. We skipped a couple of the first few chapters. But let's just dive right into it, shall we? Make some progress. I enjoy these little reads, and hopefully you do too. All right, this one's called Prayer. Something I personally would say is worth learning about with an open mind. Lord, that's also worth learning about with an open mind. Let's translate that word to divine. Divine, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. That's funny. In the second half of this poem we're reading, which is by Saint Francis of Assisi, it then refers to what above it first called Lord, it then refers to it as O Divine. It says, O Divine Master, grant that I may not seek, not so much seek, to be consoled as console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. That's a line that I hear used a lot, that I personally really like. It's one of those paradoxical things that makes sense of how the universe operates on an unexplained level. It's one of those rare times that words actually almost come close to explaining the unexplainable. Love those kind of things. And the last two lines here, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal light. Saint Francis of Assisi, 1182-1226. The Italian founder of the Franciscan order of monks, Saint Francis approached religion with a joyousness and a love of nature, calling all living beings his brothers and sisters. This simple prayer is one of the most famous and enduring of all prayers in recorded history. It expresses the deep yearning within all humans to be the spiritual being who inhabits our physical form. That's a good one there. We're not, how's the saying go, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, but rather it's the other way around, and we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We'll see if he ends up saying something to the effect of that. In the words of this prayer, St. Francis describes the essential content of our highest self. I love to silently recite this prayer and also at times say it aloud. I believe you make direct contact with St. Francis when you recite this prayer, which was written by one of the most divinely spiritual people who has ever walked among us. The same invisible God force that flowed through this man in the 12th and 13th centuries also flows through you and me. If you feel a connection to the man who wrote this prayer, you may want to read his biographies and watch a movie titled Brother Sun, Sister Moon. His life had been such an inspiration to me that, as I mention elsewhere in this book, Wayne Dyer says, I have visited Assisi to walk in the same woods and pray in the very chapel which he performed so many of his authenticated miracles. This long surviving prayer speaks to the very meaning of prayer. For many people, praying is a means of beseeching God to grant special favors. And I would add there, it's an immediate separation of yourself from divinity, the God force, universal intelligence, whatever it is you call it. It is when you pray to something outside of you, that's when your power is lost. And that is the opposite of the message. The Tao, the way, whatever you want to call it, that is the opposite of the way. The power comes from, it doesn't even come from you as a separate source, because you are of it all. So try to keep that in mind here. Let's see. See if I can find my spot. To ask for strength. His life had been an inspiration, long surviving prayer. This prayer expresses a wish to be the vehicle of God's desires rather than a request for favors from any entity outside ourselves. That is a radical shift for most of us, and it is a beginning step towards spiritual enlightenment. I would say that sentence probably calibrates pretty high. To ask for the strength to sow love where there is hatred, hope where there is despair, and light where there is darkness, is to ask to be free from the pettiness and judgment that imprisons us. It is a request to be an expression of the powerful love that we attribute to the Creator, and that is part of our being. Recently, I recognized an opportunity to do just that, Wayne Dyer says. I had played in doubles tennis. It was a doubles tennis match with 3 other men. One of the men on the losing side was annoyingly obnoxious, and as the match progressed, he slammed his racket and swore frequently during the match. When we finished playing, he stormed off the court, refusing to shake hands. As the remaining 3, included me, walked off the court, I heard my 2 fellow players condemning the actions and the attitude of the now absent man. The temptation to join in talking about what a jerk he had been almost overwhelmed the words. Where there is despair, let me sow hope. Where there is sadness, joy, which have become a part of me since I often recite the prayer. When we got off, I love these little personal stories that he gets into. I know once I continue writing more, as I have, I'll begin to put my own personal stories into paper. Because, they come out when you talk with people, but when you do videos and stuff like this, it's hard to just pop up the correct, It's hard to flow when there's not somebody else to flow off of. Now, when we got off the courts, we saw the angry, hurt man. I went over and put my arm around him and simply said, "We all have our bad moments." It was not any verbal superiority that caused me to act this way. The words of a simple man of God, who lived more than 800 years before me on another continent, spoke to and through me that day on the tennis court. Powerful, powerful. When we know that we are never alone, which is that's a key thing, because I think one of our true fears and sadnesses and struggles in life is that we think we're alone somehow. We think once we have convinced ourselves through the ego that we are separate from everything else, and we have our own status and we're disconnected and not a part of everything and everything isn't a part of us, then we feel alone. And that, I believe, is where a lot of suffering and, discontentment, discomfort, however you want to put it, sadness, anger, I think a lot of those lower levels of consciousness come from this separation created by the ego. That's some David Hawkins stuff. We'll have to get into that in the future. Start our David Hawkins highlighted series. Now, when we know that we are never alone, we change our strategy for prayer and pray that which we are already connected to. Yes. I remember my mom asking me about this. If we are it, then what about prayer? What do we pray to? Here's a really good way to put it. When we know that we are never alone, we change our strategy for prayer and pray to that which we are already connected to. And I would add a part of, the highest, most sacred aspect of our own being. If God is everywhere, universal, then there is no place that God is not, including within ourselves, within you. Armed with this awareness, we could pray and ask for nothing but our own strength, our own moral strength. Instead of asking to be sheltered from danger, we ask for the strength to be fearless. Rather than asking for the removal of pain, we seek the ability to transcend and conquer it. And that brings me back to those paradoxical statements, like the more you resist things, the more they will persist. So if you let go and allow, you will be free from it. It will flow through you more quickly. A good way to think of that is like anger. If you're angry about something and you hold on to it, you can hold on to it your entire life. Or you just allow the anger, experience it, and let it go out of you. I don't know, that's one of those processes, again, that's to put into words almost belittles the reality of what I was trying to describe. But one day we'll find the right sentence to describe that process. If God is everywhere, then there's no place that God is not, including within ourselves. So armed with this new awareness, we can pray and ask for nothing but our own moral strength. Instead of sheltered from danger, we ask for the strength to be fearless. Rather than asking for the removal of pain, we seek the ability to transcend and conquer it. We no longer assume that we know what we need and what will help us in the moment. Wow, that's a strong sentence there. We no longer assume that we know what we need and what will help us in the moment. Wow. That's like really letting go. Yet our experience teaches us that many of the things that we would never have requested have turned out to be the most beneficial. Powerful sentences here, folks. As William Shakespeare once put in, we, ignorant of ourselves, beg often our own harms, which the wise powers deny us for our own good. What a brilliant way to put that. If I had a highlighter, I would highlight that at the moment. Timestamp it in the comments down below. Or leave a comment and let me know what you think about this. If you're getting value, smash the like button. Consider subscribing. Let's see. The prayer of St. Francis is a way of seeking to practice in everyday life, consoling, understanding, pardoning, and giving actions. We all have these capacities within us, and frequently, we are moved to act in these ways. However, we are most often asking others, including that entity we think is outside us, called God, to console us, understand us, forgive us, and provide for us. By reciting this simple prayer, we are taking steps to the true spiritual growth. We are leaving ego behind and allowing our sacred self to be a dominant force in our lives. The very private, almost universal awareness or practice of prayer is an incredibly powerful force for transformation in our lives. When we place the emphasis of this activity on a kind communion with the infinite, in which we ask for the strength and courage to operate our daily lives from the principles laid out by St. Francis. That was a pretty complicated one. I say to focus on is the connection to and not the separation from. I think that's a key. Kind of puts it into it is you. You are a part of it. Like a wave on the ocean is what the ocean is doing. We are what God is doing. And the surface has a whole lot of commotion and crazy things going on. But underneath the surface is where it truly lies. And it's pure peace. It's so calm down there. And you would never expect that to be a possibility, first glance at the surface. But underneath, or out of view, impossible to see, but part of it all. All right, let's see if we can find our spot again here. This is such a good, I want to read that Shakespeare line again. We, ignorant of ourselves, beg often our own harms, which the wise powers deny us for our own good. I've always loved the story of the teacher who told the spiritually advanced young avatar, "I'll give you an orange if you can tell me where God is." The young person replied, "I'll give you 2 oranges if you can tell me where God is not." The moral, God is everywhere. When you pray to God, you pray to a silent and powerful eternal presence that is a part of you, a part of yourself. And that's why I like the term universal intelligence, or the Tao. The Tao is a good way to describe that which is indescribable. With this presence, without any idea of being separate, and practice the divine words of St. Francis and begin to put them into work in as many places as you can each day. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote the following words on the subject of prayer. I will close this essay with his insights. Prayer, as a means to effect a private end, is theft and meanness. I would say meaningless. Anyway, sorry. Prayer as a means to effect a private end is theft and meanness. It supposes dualism in nature and consciousness. As soon as the man is one with God, he will not beg. He will then see prayer in all action. Powerful. Ralph Waldo Emerson must have been a wise individual. It supposes dualism in nature and consciousness, which there is none. It's only our subjective ego perspective that gives us this dualism view that I guess does exist as equally as it does not. Paradoxes. Because the yin and the yang are one thing. You can't have one side without the other. So really, they're canceled out in an equal way. All right. I suggest you practice the words of St. Francis by incorporating the following ideas into your life. Wayne Dyer suggests, make a daily practice of privately reciting the words of this prayer. Just by saying the words, you will find yourself beginning to act on them throughout the day. If you find yourself in a confrontation of any kind with anyone, be it a family member or a stranger, before reacting, ask yourself, is what I am about to say motivated by my need to be right or my desire to be kind? Then pick a response that stems from kindness, regardless of how your ego objects. That's like a basic spiritual practice throughout every spiritual teaching there is. Every different school always has that same sort of sentiment, whether it be, Zen philosophy or any other. But it's that comes down to what I am about to do motivated by self-seeking or, helping others? Or at least, if in the least way, causing peace. All right, let's get to the end of this right here. Only 3 more suggestions. No, 2 more. Practice sending love wherever you previously radiated hate, particularly when reading newspapers or watching the news on television. By sowing love in the face of hatred, regardless of how difficult it may seem, you will become part of the solution to hatred in our world. This will require strong vigilance on your part to overcome your cultural conditioning of an eye for an eye mentality. Look into your heart and be honest about all the people in your past who have harmed you in any way. Where there is pain, practice pardon. Forgiveness is the very foundation of spiritual awakening. And it is what St. Francis is speaking of in this divine prayer. Powerful one, ladies and gentlemen. I liked it. Next one's called Grief as a Blessing. Interesting. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you enjoyed that. I appreciate everybody who spends any slivers of their time watching this. I really hope I provide you with excellent entertainment. Hope I keep you feeling good. Hope Wayne Dyer flowing through me to whoever's watching causes some extra happiness and peace in this world. Maybe more wisdom. And most importantly, how we can apply these teachings in our daily lives. And so just before I go, I want to show you the painting I did just recently. Dropped my ruler behind the couch, but check this one out. That's a beautiful, beautiful painting. Isn't it weird how it changes colors? Watch this side over here when the light shines on it. But yeah, I like that. Crazy stormy sunset sky going on up there. Oh yeah. If you're interested in owning one of my paintings, check out the description below. Also, I've got this in the description below. It's an Amazon affiliate link. I'd really appreciate it if you got this book for yourself. It's a very great reference guide to have. That's the reason I like to own physical copies of books. It's because, man, no matter what happens, you got your reference guides and hopefully the strength to carry as many as you want to take with you. And then last but not least, I want to say to my friend Eric, this was a fantastic book, man. The Icebound Land, John Flanagan, Ranger's Apprentice series, part 3. Fascinating series as well. Really appreciate that, and thanks to everybody who watches. Say hi in the comments, and until next time, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, and seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.